We should bring an excuse because you missed last meeting.
Oh, I thought you guys would meet up and leave it.
That's all we do.
Yeah.
Nice to see your mom's here.
She said that. Y'all can't hear.
I can hear
Let's check that out.
Couldn't make it come.
You might show up the next meeting, badgers from the audience.
I'll tell you what, you won't have an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, we won't see him again in Chambers until he's got some issues with paving or drainage in front of his house.
Or the Clemson wins the national
Yeah,
championship.
yeah. Overall has to.
I'll call this meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Barker?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Bub?
Here.
Mr. Fennell?
Here.
Ms. Hall? Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Labutus?
Here.
Mr. Lang?
Here.
Mr. Marmy?
Present.
We have 9 here or present this evening. Next on the agenda, we have the invocation by Mr. Labutus. Please stand.
That was great. Heavenly Father, as we come to prayer this evening, we thank you for this day, another day to live, another day to serve you. I ask that you be with us this evening in our meeting, that you would bless our discussions as we talk about different legislation, about issues in the city, and be with our time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. If you remain standing, next we have the Pledge of Allegiance by Susie Smith. She's a 5th grader par excellence. Susie, you want to come on up and lead us in the pledge? She'll get us started here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Susie. Next on the agenda, we have caucus. That's the time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything, Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. President. Make the motion to excuse Councilmember Hall.
Motion by Mr. Marmy to excuse D. Hall, second by Mr. Blake. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. That passes. Thank you. Anything else for caucus? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes of our September 7th, 2021 meeting. Motion to approve those. Motion by Mr. Labutus.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. That passes. We have no appointments this evening. We have 2 reports from standing committees, one from finance and one from service. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We have 3 reports this evening from city officials, one from our auditor, Stephen Johnson, probably his last report, the operating report for the period ending August 31st, 2021. Our city engineer, Brian Moorhead, a new list of street resurfacing, Project B, I guess he calls it. We have one from Brenda Cooper, our tax administrator office, the income tax revenue reports for the period ending August 31st, 2021. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Next, we have the mayor for a proclamation.
Thank you.
Whereas Childhood Cancer Awareness Month is an annual campaign to raise awareness about childhood cancer and to express support for children and adolescents with cancer, the survivors, and their families. Childhood cancer affects thousands of young Americans each year and is the leading cause of disease-related death for children. This year, more than 10,000 of our nation's youth will be diagnosed with this life-threatening disease. Approximately 40,000 children are on active treatment at any time, and 2/3 of childhood cancer patients who have chronic health conditions as a result of their treatment. Childhood cancer is devastating, and families face an enormous burden. Researchers and healthcare professionals work diligently, dedicating their expertise to treat and cure children with cancer. Hundreds of nonprofit organizations at the local and national level, including the Friends of Faith Prudent Foundation, are helping children with cancer and their families cope through educational, emotional, and financial support. We remember the many children who have been taken from us too soon, and we extend our support to all those who continue to battle this illness with incredible strength and courage. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Hall, Mayor of the great city of Newark, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in Newark, Ohio, and urge all citizens to get involved in the fight to end childhood cancer. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Well said. Thank you. Next, under communications, we have several this evening. One from the auditor of the state of Ohio, the notification of filing of their audit report. Two from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control, one for a transfer application and one for a new application. One from Spencer Barker, the Lincoln County Courthouse Lighting Fundraising Chairman Kickoff News Release. And the last one from AEP, a letter of notification rebuilding a transmission rebuild project in North Newark. Without objection, all those will be received and filed. Anybody wants to look at those or catch those? So, next on the agenda, we have comments from citizens. This is the time for you to be heard. This is not a debate with council. This is just your chance to be heard. And if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and we'll start. Ma'am, we'll start with you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nikia Janet. I live at 445 Mount Street. I'm here today to talk about the traffic on Mount Street. I know we have $1.6 million in the budget that's working on the road system right now. I'm requesting that we get speed bumps put in the area for the safety of our children. So far in the past 5 years, we've had a child hit on a bike on the crosswalk going to the elementary school. I live between Meadow Street and King Street. The news media has clocked people going over 40 miles an hour up and down Mount Street, going from Mount Vernon Road to 21st. It's become a big problem. I was also a combat medic and I was a pediatric nurse, and I've seen the devastations of kids being hit by cars. It's really frustrating that people do not obey the speed limit. During school hours, when there are signs posted that says, 20 miles an hour during school hours, it's only 25 miles per hour up and down our roadways. I yelled at a guy that was driving really fast because I can clock them between posts. I know it takes me, if I'm going 20 miles an hour, it takes me 6 seconds in between light posts to go 20 miles an hour. So I said, it's a school zone, you're not going the speed limit, is what I yelled to him. He turned around to tell me that he was only going 33 miles an hour, which was 13 miles over the speed limit. I have filed numerous police reports with numerous license plates of people not obeying the speed limit up and down Mount Street. There was a car accident 2 years ago where a lady was going so fast, she took out one of our electric poles. She broke it in half. She was speeding that fast down Mount Street. My next door neighbor, she has a 15-year-old son that walks to the high school on King Avenue. She makes him call her when he gets there every day to make sure that he got there safely and wasn't hit by a car. At 15 years old, this 15-year-old child should be able to walk up and down the street safely. It is not safe up and down Mount Street. And I'm just making you guys aware of the traffic. And with them trying to put a gas station on 21st at the end of Mount, people are going to be speeding in Newark. And it's becoming ridiculous. And the neighbor that I had down Mount Street after King Avenue, she actually had a sign posted in her yard. This is a neighborhood, not a roadway, not a raceway. And nobody pays attention and nobody cares about the speed limit, whether it's 20 or 25 miles an hour. Nobody's paying attention and nobody's doing anything about it. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Linda Mossholder, 224 Green Meadow Drive, Newark, Ohio. I'm back again, kind of talk a little bit more about the American Rescue Dollars. As you all know, I've been here several different times requesting that at least consideration be given to other than some of the things that have already been improved. I was here last week and one of the things that I talked about was the fentanyl testing strips. They have been proven to save lives of people who are still in active drug use. One of the things that the homeless outreach is requesting, we're requesting $4,100 for fentanyl testing strips and some carry-out supplies. I'm assuming there's at least $2 million left, unless something's been allocated that I have not been made aware of. When I spoke last week, I also talked a little bit about the people who have died of overdose in the county. I mentioned there was at least 45, 47, 35 attributed to fentanyl. After the meeting was over, there's no response to what I said. So when I left, I said, it can't possibly be that people don't care that people are dying. And that a simple thing like a fentanyl testing strip can prevent somebody from dying. So I'm not going to jump to that conclusion. What I am going to ask, is there stigma that is preventing this money from being used for this? And what I mean by stigma is people who are still actively using substances. Are we assuming that this is their choice, that they like being a substance abuser? Are we assuming that they don't want treatment? Approximately 70% of people who are seeking treatment cannot get in for various reasons. It could be they don't have health insurance, there's not treatment facilities available, or it could just be that the treatment that is available is not going to meet their needs. Substance use abuse is a brain disease. People do not choose addiction. People who use substances, some use them sporadically, some use them all the time, but we can prevent people from dying. We are taking, I know Mr. Blake is taking steps to get an outreach worker to work with some of the people, and hopefully that can assist people into getting to treatment. But until they could get there, we need to keep them alive. Dead people cannot access treatment. I don't think $4,100 in the scheme of $9.2 million is a large ask. If anyone would like to see the request I made, I have some copies of that. Again, I please would like the administration to at least consider this small request out of the total of $9.2 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else wanted to speak? I'm sorry, ma'am.
My name is Giselle James. I'm superintendent at Par Excellence Academy, and we're a community school in Newark, Ohio. And we are the only community school in Newark, Ohio. And we want to thank you for your gracious support of the Par Excellence Academy. Because we're a community school, we're the most underfunded school in the district. So your support for us will mean a lot to our students as far as our building repairs, curriculum, and other things that we are always in need of as a community school. And I just want to graciously thank you for supporting us with that. And again, what can I say, when I have that support from the community, it means a lot to my staff, the students, and it will benefit the community with our students. So thank you.
Thank you. Your student who was just here did a nice job on the pledge.
Thank you.
Who else would like to speak this first section? Anyone? Ma'am? Anyone else? So I can get you in line? Okay. No, man, come on. Just give us your name and address for the record.
Barbara Bailey Beltran, and the address is 279 Darling Drive. And I guess I'm kind of a walking billboard, but I am here to express the gratitude and enthusiasm for the Licking County pickleball players. But also, I guess I wanted all of you to realize too, that the facility that you're going to do is going to benefit the whole community. I think you've talked with older members of the community on this, but as time goes by, this is a facility that'll be used by the whole community age-wise. There, from your middle school students to the senior citizens. That whole age group at some point in the coming years will probably use that facility. So I just want to express that you might think you're only doing this for the senior citizens at this time, but it is for everyone. The other thing is you have asked the players to also show their support by financial things. And I think we do have some donors that have, I know I've got my dentist to donate. But we are having a pickleball demo day, which will be this coming Saturday at the Canal Market. And the Canal Market is having their home decor and garden show. And drawing people there, and there is a parking lot near there that we're going to set up a court and a net and show you exactly what pickleball is like. So for those who have never heard of it, or, we're going to do a demonstration for you. And it's supposed to be a nice day, so we're hopeful there. But then we're also going to encourage you to go eat at Moe's, because they're going to give us 20% donation on the food purchase. And that's more than 10%, which most, benefits are. This is going to be 20, so that's great. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know how thankful and enthused we are with this upcoming facility. So thank you.
What time did you say that was, Saturday?
Thank you. It is from 10 to 3 on Saturday,
Okay,
so
thank you. Hope you get a big crowd.
Time's demonstration,
10 to 3.
demonstration, what time is the demonstration?
It will be the whole time, from 10 to 3, the demonstration will be. So we're going to set up about 9:30. So thank you, and hopefully maybe I'll see some of you there. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to ordinances on the second reading, 21-21.
Ordinance number 21-21 by Mr. Bub, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, Mr. Rath, and Mr. Lang. An ordinance amending the position, classification, pay range, and department authorization tables of the City of Newark Division of Water and Wastewater by trading the classifications of Utilities Operations Supervisor and Customer Services Coordinator within the division, and setting the compensation therefore, and establishing all other positions within the division.
You've heard the second reading of 21-21. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Bub.
I'll move that we adopt ordinance 21-21.
Motion by Mr. Bub,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 21-21? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-21 passes 9-0. Next, we got ordinances on the first reading, 21-26.
Ordinance number 21-26 by Mr. Rath and Mr. Barker, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 1991 Cherry Valley Road, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of MFC multifamily condo district to single family residence RH high density district zoning code of the City of Newark, Ohio.
21-26 will be referred to the planning commission, and then after they decide put the blessing on it one way or the other, they'll come back to us. Next, we have 21-27.
Ordinance number 21-27 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Labutus, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 2023 Cherry Valley Road, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of MFR multifamily residence district to single family residence RH high density district zoning code of the City of Newark, Ohio.
And 21-27 will also be referred to the planning commission. Next, on the first reading, we have 21-28.
Resolution, ordinance number 21-28 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath to provide for the issuance of not to exceed $300,000 of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying a portion of the cost of burial of overhead electric, cable, and telephone lines, including easement, acquisition, and alley repairs, and all necessary appurtenance thereto, and declaring an emergency.
21-28 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-28.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Lang. Is there any discussion on 21-28? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-28 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-29.
Ordinance number 21-29 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath to provide for the issuance of not to exceed $850,000 of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying a portion of the cost of constructing a new 4th and Main roundabout and all necessary appurtenances thereto and declaring an emergency.
Again, ordinance 21-29 is on its first reading, but it's an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-29.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Lang. Is there any discussion on 21-29? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-29 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-30.
Ordinance 21-30 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath to provide for the issuance of not to exceed $1,550,000 of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying a portion of the cost of road, bridge, and bike path improvements and all necessary appurtenances thereto and declaring an emergency.
21-30 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-30.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 21-30? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-30 passes 9-0. Next, we go on to 21-31.
Ordinance number 21-31 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath to provide for the issuance of not to exceed $800,000 of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying a portion of the cost of ice rink roof replacement and all necessary appurtenances thereto and declaring an emergency.
21-31 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-31.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Any discussion on 21-31? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Bub.
Yes.
Mr. Fennell.
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-31 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-32.
Ordinance number 21-32 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath, an ordinance consolidating 4 bond anticipation note issues of the city for Newark, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
21-32 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-32.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Labutus. Is there any discussion on 21-32?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
I would like to just make a point of the fact that in order for the other ones to really be effective, this ordinance definitely has to be passed in order to consolidate them to get the rate in which we're attempting to get.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Anyone else? Jenny, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-32 passes 9-0. Okay. Next, we go on to resolutions on the second reading, 21-48.
Resolution number 21-48 by Mr. Lang, Mr. Rath, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Marmy. A resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service for the City of Newark, Ohio to enter into a lease agreement with Park National Bank for the lease purchase of miscellaneous mower and other equipment for use in the Department of Service.
You've heard the second reading of 21-48. What is your wish?
President,
Mr. Lang.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 21-48.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Lang,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 21-48?
Mr. President,
Mr. Lang.
yeah, I'd like to make a motion to amend resolution 21-48 to replace it with 21-48A.
Want to tell us roughly what that is?
Yeah, I was gonna wait for a second, but that's fine.
Second.
Okay. Yeah, so when this originally came through, the Capital Improvements Committee was drafted with the assumption that we'd be doing competitive bidding. The discussion that we had in Capital Improvements Committee, the law director was made aware that we were actually going to be buying this equipment through the State of Ohio Cooperative Purchasing Program, which does not require competitive bidding to buy through that program. So the law director drafted 21-48A.
So the amendment, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Any discussion on 21-48 amendment? Seeing none, Janine, let's do the roll to vote on the amendment. On amendment, I guess.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-48 has been amended to 21-48A. Mr. Lyon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I already made a motion to adopt. Right?
Oh, I believe you did. I'm sorry. Do we have a second on that? Yes. Second by Mr. Barker. I haven't done amendment for a while. I had a little fog on it.
Let's.
Okay, is there any discussion on 21-48A? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-48A is passed 9-0. Next on the second reading, we have 21-50.
Resolution number 21-50 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Barker, Mr. Lang, replacement of LIC CR 8031.16, SFN 4561430 bridge, which carries Granville Road over Log Plum Run Division Channel in the city of Newark.
You heard the second reading of 21-50. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 21-50.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Labutus. Is there any discussion on 21-50? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-50 passes 9-0. Okay, and then finally, we go to resolutions on the first reading, 21-53.
Resolution number 21-53 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Barker, Mr. Rath. A resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Newark to enter into a community development block grant funded subrecipient agreement with the hereinafter named organizations to carry out activities included within Newark's FY 2021 Community Development Block Grant 1-year action plan and declaring an emergency.
21-53 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to adopt resolution 21-53.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Labutus. Is there any discussion on 21-53? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-53 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-54.
Resolution number 21-54 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath. A resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development a 1-year use of funds action plan along with an application for FY 2022 federal community development block grant funds as required by 24 CFR Part 91.220 for various programs related to housing and community development.
21-54 is on its first reading. It will be held for 2 weeks until our next meeting, which will be October 1st. Next, we have 21-55.
Resolution number 21-55 by Mr. Rath and Mr. Marmy. A resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
21-55 is on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What do you wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to adopt resolution 21-55.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 21-55? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-55 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-56.
Resolution number 21-56 expedited by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath. Resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
21-56.
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
I make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule of resolution 21-56.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmy. Second. Second by Mr. Barker. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. We need to expedite this. This is for overtime dollars that the fire department definitely is in need of, and they did not have it in their current budget. So we could expedite this.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Janine, please call the roll, waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt resolution 21-56.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmy. Second. Second by Mr. Barker. Is there any other discussion on 21-56? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
21-56 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-57.
Resolution number 21-57 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Marmy, and Mr. Barker, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service to prepare and submit applications to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvements Program and to execute contracts as required.
21-57 will be held for 2 weeks to our next meeting of October 4th. And finally, tonight, we have 21-58.
Resolution number 21-58 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Marmy, and Mr. Barker, a resolution adopting the Licking County countywide all natural hazards mitigation plan.
And 21-58 will be held for 2 weeks until our next meeting on October 4th. And that concludes the legislation tonight. Thank you. Had a pretty lengthy group there tonight. You might think that they don't discuss a lot of this legislation, but a lot of it's hammered out at committee 2 weeks before this, just FYI. Okay, we have our second opportunity for comments from citizens. Again, this is not a debate with council. This is your opportunity to be heard. Do we have anyone in this section that would like to speak? If you raise your hand, and I'll have you guys come up in order. Seeing none, any city officials? Mr. Spurgeon, any other city officials? Mr. Spurgeon.
Good
How are
evening,
you?
Mr. President, members of council. Thank you for your passage, personnel chair, members of council, and support for ordinance 2121. Many of us here know there's a changing of the guard and this esteemed building, and many in the audience may not know those watching at home. But Doug Sassen has been a friend, a mentor, and Sage Council for a number of administrations. I certainly have benefited from his wise advice. Certainly when it comes to safety director, Brandon and Mayor Hall's team. Doug was just really, really kind and had the office answer all my questions. So I want to welcome Trish, but certainly want to publicly thank Doug Sassen for his service to our great city and wish him well all of life's blessings on the next step of his journey. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Spurgeon. Any other city officials? Okay. Our current assistant law director, Ms. Moore.
Thank you. I echo with Mr. Spurgeon said. I mean, I've worked for Doug for the past 16 years. He's been an amazing boss, amazing leader. And I hope, I know I have big shoes to fill, and I look forward to the challenge, but he has done great things for the city, and I'm appreciative for that as a citizen of Newark. Second of all, I want to give condolences out. I don't know how many people follow Macy's Mended Heart on the passing of Macy. I've been following her on Facebook for a while, and the family's openness on the journey and the courage that they showed was just amazing. So I wanted to pass my condolences on to her family. Also, fatalities are up in our county. So I know someone was talking about people speeding on the road. So please be mindful when you're out there because we've had quite a few fatalities reported by the state patrol. So thank you.
Ms. Moore. Mayor Hall.
Yeah, I'd probably expand on that just a bench. And of course, if you notice out on 161, they do have a safety corridor they put in, and there will be no tolerance at all for texting and driving, et cetera. So kind of want everybody to be aware of that. Those things do happen because of fatalities in this county. And when they do go up, you're going to see more state troopers. You're going to see federal funding and state funding to help them try to enforce safer driving habits. So I would encourage everyone to do that. It's not good to be known kind of as a county with a lot of, accidents and fatalities. We need to get our driving under control. And I'd also like to thank Doug Sasson and Steve Johnson, both of them, their last day with the city. They'll be retiring on the 30th of this month, and they have both spent an enormous amount of time and work in this city, and we are a better city because of that. A lot of the changes they've done, and they will be missed, and their replacements will be, I'm sure, do a great job. They've all got great staffs, and that's due to their credentials that they did such a good job. But they'll be missed. I think they both look forward to retirement, and as we see neither one are here tonight. So, but I will again say thank you so much for both of them for all they've done for us. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rath.
Thank you. First, I want to say to the key, I thank you for coming in and expressing your concerns. Mile Street has been a point of concern for a while now. And I hope that we can find a way to tamper down the speeding in that area. I don't know if speed bumps could be the answer, but even if we could venture into the idea of using temporary speed bumps, take up in the winter time, that could be a part-time resolution. But obviously there's a concern with Mile Street. Thank you for coming in and voicing that. I wanted to say thank you to Brian Moorhead, who's not here tonight, but for the engineers department for putting out the B list of roads that are going to be started this spring, the spring of 2022. Is that right? Yeah, spring of 2022. It's a great list. I've been on council for a long time. I can't remember when we've done this much paving in a very, very long time. So I'm very excited about that moving forward with that. Also wanted to add condolences to one of our members of our community that has contributed significantly over the years, and that's Jim Matheny. If you don't know who Jim Matheny is, he's the gentleman that organizes the Light in the Night car show that was held here about a week or so ago, along with a lot of other car shows, but particularly that one that helps us light courthouse lighting. I'm sure Mr. Barker will have something to say about that as well. But he will be, he was also a neighbor, so he will be missed. And then thank you to Steve Johnson and Doug Sasson for your service over the years. I've always appreciated their input and their professionalism. And I'm sure their replacements will be professional and more than adequate. They still will be missed. So with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Mr. Barker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to echo my thanks to Steve and Doug. My quick time to get on council 2 years ago. It was spent some time with both of them to get caught up to speed, and I greatly appreciated that. As Councilman Rath mentioned, yes, we had a huge loss at the for our community, for others in the community as well, other organizations. But in downtown Newark, the Light the Night cruise-in was probably one of the best rated cruise-ins in the county, if not most in the state. I know as a little kid, Jim Matheny has organized that show for the Courthouse Lighting Committee for probably the last 25 plus years at least. And so I knew when I got down there that day, something was wrong because he was not there. And I didn't learn until later that evening that he had passed that morning. The show will go on. People have asked me that question. Is it still going to happen? Yes, it's still going to happen. That show is too important to the Courthouse Lighting Committee, as well as downtown Newark and the businesses in downtown Newark and the citizens of our community as a whole, to have that show stop. So it is not going to stop. We will do it, continue doing it in memory of Jim Matheny as well. And I also want to, as Assistant Law Director Moore said, my prayers go out to Macy's family. I read that this morning, and that was not an easy read to wake up to. So, but with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to give my thanks and appreciation to both Doug Saxon and Steve Johnson. When I first got on council, one of the first cups of coffee I had was with each of them. Steve, obviously understanding city finances and understanding of our budget process and things. And then to be with Doug, just wanted to understand the process of introducing resolution and ordinances and things like that. And also he was our parliamentarian, served in that role. So then his opinion, input, and leadership is very valuable. So best of luck to both of them. Also want to continue on with some thank yous. Since I was last here, we've had several different constituent concerns. And I just want to give a shout out to in Director Rose's office. Tina Scott has helped with several different issues with street lights. Lindsay Brighton in the stormwater office under Department of Safety. Director Hickman, Lindsay's been very helpful with some stormwater issues from different residents. And then also Joyce has helped with some property maintenance issues that have come up with different residents throughout my area. So I appreciate both your staff for being very, this time for obvious reasons, things are very much, a lot of concerns are coming in. So, but they've handled all those increased numbers of constituent concerns. So thank you very much to both of your staffs for working on those. And I just want to, thank you both. I don't know how many people have been down. South 4th Street is not open yet, but if you just drive down there, the lighting, the light poles and the lights, those are just beautiful. So I just want to, I know you work extremely well on different lighting throughout there, and South 4th Street just looks really nice with the different bulbs and things that are down there. So
Really does.
yeah, so it looks really good. And then lastly, Mr. President, I'll just say that, serving both here on council, and then I serve on the Main Place Board and also BHP's board. The stigma that Mrs. Musholder talked about related to drug abuse and substance abuse in our community, it most definitely is real. And so some people don't understand. Some people need to have some understanding related to the stigma that's associated with people that are suffering from drug addiction and substance abuse. And I'll just put an announcement out, and everyone will get an invitation to this, but here in October, BHP will be opening up our urgent care center on East Main Street in the old KP hall. And so, council is definitely going to email notification about that, including ribbon cutting ceremony. But we're excited to open up that urgent care center. And I've talked to different law enforcement and firefighters, and they're excited to have that urgent care center open as well to take people to, instead of just always transporting them to the hospital. So that's an exciting step for us to take. With that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Bell.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. 2 items this evening. First off, I want to wish Steve the best in their retirement. Hope they enjoy their years out of city government now. And secondly, I want to thank the water office. They did something really nice here this past week. There was a business out in the West End that did a really nice landscape design, really beautified the property. Little did they know it was over a curb box for the water department, and some repairs needed to be done. And they went out of their way instead of just easily tearing it up. They did a lot extra excavating and kind of went under it, saved the bed. It was really a nice gesture, and really appreciate them doing that, taking the extra time. So it was a good example of the city serving citizens. And, a big thank you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Fennell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to congratulate Steve Johnson and Doug Sassen on their retirement. And I know that sitting next to Doug for quite a few years here, it's definitely been great to have such an incredible expert next to me on council. And he will be missed, but I'm looking forward to your service as well. Also want to make an announcement that Newark Pride is happening on October 2nd. So that's coming up on October 2nd at the Canal Market District. It's free and open to everyone. So I hope that everybody can stop by and enjoy themselves. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell. Mr. Harris.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to wish Doug and Steve happy retirement. Hope things go well for them. I want to thank Susie Smith for coming in and saying the pledge tonight. And on Mouse Street, she's still there? Yes. I'd like to talk to you after the meeting, and maybe we can get some ideas and try to figure out what's going on with that. Also want to thank Brian Moorhead and the engineering, all the engineer guys. there was a gas leak a couple Fridays ago up on Mount Vernon Road. And I called them because we needed to shut down State Route 13, and they helped me get the right signs out on the highway and how to detour traffic. And so I want to thank them guys for stepping in and helping us with that. So, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Labutus?
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to wish Steve and Doug all the best in their retirement, and thank them for the years of service and exemplary service that they've had. And also, Nakia, I would like to speak with you as well. So when we'll have it done with Mr. Harris, myself, and we'll have a chat. Okay? And thank you for coming in and share that. I certainly appreciate it. And with that,
Thank you, Mr. Labutus. Mr. Lang?
Mr. President, thank you. Yeah, first I will congratulate and thank Doug and Steve for their many years of service. Obviously, they will be missed. But we look forward to working with you. I think I've worked with you a bit already, and I think you'll fill the shoes just fine. Wanted to thank the service department and the Lake County Parks District for the upgrades on the bike paths. As somebody who walks those bike paths in and around campus, it was really nice to have some very needed repairs. Actually saw a guy out there rollerblading in an area where you could not have rollerbladed without seriously injuring yourself. Just a few weeks ago, he looked pretty pleased because now he can do a full loop. So King Road, with the new roundabout and the design there, with it being a right only, I know we've had some issues. I wanted to thank the police department, Chief McKee, Deputy Chief Riley, for doing some getting some targeting enforcement out there. Also wanted to thank Brian Moorhead and Nick Schultz for helping with, I think we need to, update some designs. They're working on updated signage. I think we're gonna get some road paint to help redirect traffic, but, and I would like to thank them. They also put out a nice graphic that I used on social media to help remind folks the intended traffic flow. Linda, thank you for sharing everything you shared tonight. If you could send me the request that you sent, and if you have any information on how that fits into the ARP guidelines, that'd be helpful background as well, and I can certainly follow up with the mayor and others. With that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. If you'd also send that to Janae, and she'll get it to everyone too. And Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. President. I first need to call a finance committee meeting for 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. I guess I'll start out by thanking the mayor for his proclamation for childhood cancer awareness. And then, it hit my family last night when we did hear the news of Macy. So not only cancer, but any kind of childhood illness that takes the lives of our young children. And just, you realize how precious life is when you see that happen to a child in the family. I can only imagine the devastation, and my thoughts and prayers go out to her family. And any family who is going through any kind of a battle with any kind of childhood awareness. My heart goes out to them. Next, I want to just echo what Mr. Lang said about King Road. I really appreciate the communication. I mean, I know he and I both received numerous emails and texts and things about that, and just appreciate the fact that the administration got right on it, and that the police department came through also and did some things. And I think communication is the key in making sure that works. And I think sticking through with the fact that we need to keep that a right hand turn only, and just making sure that the folks are aware of it. The first thing is education. I think a lot of folks they don't even pay attention to this. I mean, they're used to their old habits of turning left. So we need to make sure we're working through that. So I appreciate that. Finally, I want to thank Director Sasson and Auditor Johnson for their many years of service, not only to city council or to as their current position, but just to the citizens. I know that they had other positions prior, and just the service that they have given to our community is just definitely noteworthy. I know we have benefited from both of them here in the city of Newark, working in this building, and can't thank them enough. they're not only great at their job, but they're just great men. And I mean, you just can't help but like both of them. You enjoy talking with them. And that's I think even for a lot of individuals, that's a good testament. You know, it's not going to stay on their tombstone that they were a great law director. They were great human beings. They're great fathers. They're great husbands. And I just think that I'm glad that I got to know them and that they were a part of my life. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'd also add my thanks to Director Sasson and Auditor Johnson. I've worked with them for almost 18 years, and I know I personally benefited from their counsel. I think they've both done a terrific job, but when you want to retire and do something else, I can understand that too. So I'll certainly miss them, but I just wish them a lot of joy in their retirement. I'd like to thank all of you this evening for paying attention. You guys have been a great crowd tonight. Been very nice, been quiet when you should be, so it's been great. Our next meeting will be October 4th, 5:45 will be committees, 7 o'clock will be full council. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Bub, second by Mr. Burris, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.